All right, everybody. We are live with the Combatcast. It's a man they call Dave. It's Chevarooney, and we are back, and we're going to talk some fights. Before we kick this off, here's this video. Are you a fan of pro wrestling, comedy, and combat sports? Then we have the podcast for you because we cover that and much, much more.
Do you like to debate with your friends? Do we have the perfect segment for you? It's the 531, where we take any given subject, break it down to a top 5. From there, we debate it down to 3, and then into that number 1 spot.
If you want to get a hold of us, find us on our social medias. Search Working Fans Podcast on any major social media platform. And if you want to find the podcast, search for us on any major podcast platform, as well as YouTube.
Working Fans Podcast. We put in the work so you don't have to.
All right, everybody, we're back. And Chevy, tell me what we got coming up and what we're talking about.
All right, so next week, October 8th, there are no fights, so we're going to be working on something for you guys. We're not sure exactly what we're doing yet, but we're hoping something special. So after that, October 15th, we have UFC Fight Night Grasso versus Arroyo. Could be a potentially good matchup. I don't know about the rest of the card yet, but later on in the month, October 22nd, UFC 280 Oliveira versus Makhachev. Going to be a huge card. We're looking forward to that one. So, and today there's a whole lot of stuff going on this week, Dave. We got Bellator, we got One Championship. We're going to talk about Dana White's Contender Series and obviously the UFC fight card this weekend. So, where do you want to start off?
Man, let's start off with the Contender Series from last night. We both have been talking a little off air that this is something we'd like to cover, but we hadn't gotten around to doing it. Last night we did that. It was kind of funny because I texted you and you were watching whatever was on their main page was like the week before.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't want to spoil this for Chevy. So the first fight has that knockout within like the first minute of the fight. And I'm like, damn. So I just said, damn, because I know that, okay, that's something, but he hasn't seen it. But then you said something flyweights. And I'm like, yeah, are these flyweights? I couldn't remember. I didn't know because I walked in. And then you're like, oh, first round. And I'm like, okay, wait, something's going on.
I was like, oh, yeah, I think I'm a little bit behind you. And then a minute later, the round ended. And I was like, what is happening? And yeah, that's when I realized I'm watching the wrong fight card. So,
so that knockout you saw was Matus. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Medanka, maybe. He had blue hair.
Yeah, he had blue hair. The blue hair Brazilian guy. Yep.
Yeah, and not much to say. Because it was just a big time knockout, bantamweight. Another guy that's going to be probably a problem at bantamweight, so that's exciting. Mm-hmm. And he got a contract.
So. Yeah, is it big punch? I didn't get to see much of the fight. I just saw the finish because I saw it afterwards. But the guy has personality for sure. So he got a UFC contract. Looking forward to seeing him soon, hopefully in the UFC.
And another name I'm going to have trouble with, Rafael. Well, maybe not. Rafael Ramos Estevam. Mm-hmm. And he got a TKO round 2. What I remember particularly about this fight, though, is these guys were both super active on the ground. Like, this was very much a lot of scrambles, a lot of going for submissions. And Dana even talked about this later, that he thought he was worried about Rafael. Like, why are you hanging around this guy's guard? It's because he was not afraid to go anywhere. And that was what's kind of impressive about this. And again, this guy got a contract as well. Another flyweight. This one wasn't the flyweights. And I don't know. Impressive.
Yeah. Elias, the commentary team was talking about his setups for arm bars. He has armbar finishes, which, anyone watching MMA, you see, you hear about a lot of armbar finishes in jiu-jitsu matches, but usually by the time people get to the UFC or Bellator, any high level MMA, it's very hard to land an armbar on people. And this guy was locking them up in every fight from every position. And you actually saw early on in a scramble, he dove for an armbar and he almost got it. So I think that's why Dana was surprised that Rafael engaged in the grappling, but he ended up doing quite well. And he got that TKO in round 2.
Absolutely. Again, I mean, it was the season finale, but like so many good fights that we got to check out. What's up to some fans in the Kevin Houseworth?
Hey, Kevin.
Kevin, thank you for tuning in, brother. Talking Contender Series last night and another fight. Jack Jenkins. All right. First off, Jack Jenkins. Love this guy's mustache. TKO round 3, featherweight. And now what's interesting to me was Jack. First off, he opened up this guy. He cut this guy. He dominated this fight. He had a problem with his cup. There was some kind of wardrobe issue. He did not. What's that?
His tie cup broke.
Yeah, it broke. So he had to deal with that bullshit. And he didn't let it affect him. He keeps, his head in the game, and he gets the finish. He wants this finish. He's worried if he doesn't get this finish, that they're possibly not gonna, sign him. Well, they signed him. And what I thought was interesting was Dana said he thought he looked a little one-dimensional because he had people telling him what a good kickboxer he was. But he said it's the end of the season. Hell, he dominated. I'm going to give him the contract. But I hope to see more of that kickboxing. I just want to add, I thought he was dominant. I thought he did what he needed to do. But if this guy's a world-class kickboxer, too, on top of everything else he's got, this guy's going to be one to watch out for, too.
Yeah, so Jenkins said that Freddie didn't want to get up when he had been taken down. He didn't fight to get up. So he said, why bother put myself in danger? So he just stayed on top and did work. And he did land that heavy elbow to cut his eye open, and blood was spraying everywhere. It didn't end up being the worst cut, but it bled very, very bad. And Dana, like you said, Dana was saying he was, highly touted kickboxer, but we didn't get to see any of that. So if anything, I think, that shows his well-roundedness, his ability to adapt to what is going to win him the fight. I just think Dana wants to see people who want to be exciting. But like Dana said, it was the last card of the season, so he gave him a contract.
Again, and I thought well deserving. I don't think this guy should have been like on the cusp of not even getting it, but we know how Dana is when it comes to what he wants. Like you said,
Jenkins was hard on himself as well. He was not happy with his performance. So this shows the kind of guy that he is too. He wants to be exciting in there.
Yeah. Now next fight, Sam Patterson. So where you missed that first fight, with this one, I actually was watching it and got pulled away for a second, and it was over. I just know that he basically ended up getting the rear naked choke, and it looks like it was round 2, if I remember. Okay, so rear naked choke, round 2. But what I noticed first, I was watching this fight in the first round, is that Sam is super tall for this weight class. I thought
a little more tall, yeah.
Yeah, but like he was coming in with some head kicks and stuff like that. What I didn't like sometimes was I thought Sam had his chin up a little high. I don't know if you caught that too.
Dangerous.
Yeah, I'm like, it was a little dangerous. And I kept saying to Pete, who was watching the fights with me, I'm like, this guy's either going to get caught or he's going to end up catching somebody. Well, he ended up choking him out, and he got the win and he got a contract. So you might have saw a little more of this. What'd you think?
Yeah. First of all, his cardio is great. They were talking about how he just runs miles and miles and miles all the time. And you could see that, in the second round, Vinicius, that's a tough name, but Vinicius, he's the Italian guy. He's fighting out of King's MMA. They give the little promo before the fight, and they were talking about how Kelvin Gastelum went and got him food while he was living in a warehouse, and they were taking care of him, and I was really rooting for the guy. And then he got in there, and he didn't have a terrible showing, but he was lucky to survive as long as he did. He got caught in Darce before that, guillotine. He was just tired on the feet, and it was only the second round. So as much as Sam Patterson looked great, I agree with you. He did have his chin up. That's going to be very dangerous. He's tall for lightweight. I think he was like 6'1" or 6'2" or something like that. Very tall. But if you're tall and you keep your chin up like that, you're going to get clipped with an overhand right and put to sleep. His ground game looked pretty good, though. And we'll see how it goes. I don't know if he's going to be a top 5 guy, but you can learn to protect yourself a little bit better. But
yeah.
I was sad to see Vinicius lose. I hope he gets another shot next season.
Yeah, so I purposely, and this isn't probably best for the podcast, but for my viewing enjoyment and wanted to not really get partial, I actually made sure to avoid a lot of stories last night because every time I do that, they suck me in. I don't want to root for this guy.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, not tonight.
Yeah, they make you want to root for the guy, but it hurts when they lose. You get invested. So,
all right, this main event. Donovan Beard, who came in at 7-1 against Bo Nickel, who came in at 2-0. Bo Nickel was a big-time Big Ten wrestling guy.
He was the greatest. He was awarded. I can't remember the name of the trophy, but he was awarded I believe his Hummel Award, greatest wrestler in the nation. So at Penn State, that's quite the achievement.
He's more than just a wrestler. So This thing went, I don't know, maybe a minute.
48 seconds, I think.
48 seconds?
I think so.
I was like, maybe a minute 10. All right, so 48 seconds. This is incredibly impressive for 48 seconds because in 48 seconds, you're like, oh, that's impressive as it is. No, what's impressive about this is he comes out, he rocks him. The guy, Donovan Beard, to his credit, he survives. Then Nickel immediately goes for like a takedown, and Beard scrambles, gets on top in that second, and Nickel ends up getting like the triangle choke. And like that. So like he immediately showed power, immediately showed the ability to transition to takedown, and immediately showed he's good off his back, all within 48 seconds over a guy who had only had one loss prior to this fight. This kid's only on his 3rd fight. This is super impressive.
Yeah, I think also, so he landed that overhand left because he's southpaw. He landed that overhand left, which would have absolutely knocked Beard down, but he was already, Bo was already transitioning to a takedown while Beard was falling. He gets into mount, and as a wrestler, you're trained to stay on top all the time, control, and stay on top. He forgoes that. I don't think that he got flipped onto his back. I think he went for the arm bar, rolled to an arm bar, and Beard, gave up his neck. So Bo actually transitioned to a triangle. So to see a wrestler roll to their back is in their 3rd professional fight is absolutely amazing, especially someone of his skill. That's like watching Khabib roll to his back instead of just staying on top and pounding dudes out, super impressive. That guy's going to be a big time problem. I mean, you could tell the UFC was ready for this. They had games, the new UFC games with him on the cover already. He didn't technically hadn't even been awarded a contract yet. So at the end of the season, they voted in, the 17-year-old that won last week, Raul Rojas Jr., the youngest UFC athlete, 17 years old. They voted him in, and then Dana said, you know what? We're going to add in Bo Nickel as well. So they're both coming to the UFC game.
Yeah.
He hasn't even had a fight in the UFC yet, and he's already a star.
Yeah. I like this, though. I think it's fun. I like this element of promotion of giving these guys some shine, some spotlight. Ultimately, it's a pressure cooker situation, and you can argue that maybe it's always not fair to put someone, especially the young 17-year-old, in these pressure situations. But, man, you're 17 years old. Do you want to give this a shot? Like, what the hell? Of course you do. So I just hope they all do well, and I think it makes it interesting, like Patty the Batty and stuff like that. These guys that, maybe they're not, winning the title or anything, in the next couple fights, but you never know. But in the meantime, we got some exciting storylines and some intriguing, stuff coming on with these guys that are fighting that aren't necessarily the championship picture. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, Bo, especially, the guy only has 3 professional fights. He has all this hype on him, but the way that he's finished these fights, I don't know if you saw his fight outside of the Contender Series, but he knocked the guy out standing. So he's very impressive. He called out Hamzat. He said if he could make weight, and then he also called out Logan Paul. He said if the UFC wanted to sign him, they could fight in MMA, or he could go over to WWE and fight him. So the guy can rip a promo too. So he's a whole package.
I love it. Smart too. He's throwing everything out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for him. All right, there's a lot of stuff coming this week. He said one championship is coming up too.
Yep, the Angela Lee card. That's going to be on Friday, 10 p.m. Another Amazon Prime card. So that's U.S. time zone friendly for us.
And a couple of news and notes, actually, before we get to the rest of these fight cards too. Aspen Ladd was cut, presumably for missing weight again.
Yes, 3 weight misses in the UFC. She had 1 outside of the UFC as well. She has a real problem. I don't know if she just needs a new nutritionist. I know she blamed one on her menstrual cycle. Whatever it is, everyone else seems to be able to figure it out for the most part. It's a job. If you can't cut the weight, you have to fight at a different weight class. So I assume she's pretty young.
She'll be back.
She gets with a nutritionist. She learns a lesson from this, and she'll be back in the UFC.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just she's in some higher profile fights because she got some, name, her little recognition early on, and now you start having some issues and they can't rely on you to put you in a situation. At the end of the day, it's a business too. So yeah, I know why she was cut. And honestly, too, as much as I like Aspen Ladd and she's young and I do hope to see her back, UFC needs to do some stuff like this once in a while too, because you got to put it out there that these guys have to try to make weight.
Yeah, if there's one thing the UFC does not tolerate is people missing weight. If they cannot rely on you, say she was the main, fight on a card and you miss weight, that ruins a whole card. So that's a lot of money that the UFC would be missing out on. If they can't depend on you, they're not going to pay you. You're going to be fighting somewhere else.
Another news and notes too. Marlon Moraes coming back. Looks like he's signed to the PFL. And he's also looks like they're going to have him fight Shane Burgos on one of their end of the year cards. So this won't be a tournament fight. This is just a fight they've added. Interesting, exciting. I like that Moraes, who's had success in the World Series of Fighting, which was the predecessor of PFL. Mm-hmm. And I think
a champion.
He was, yeah. And I think that this would be a good, and he's coming in a different weight class, I believe, too. Yeah, so this is good.
Used to fight at bantamweight, right?
Yeah, so this is good. So this will all be good stuff. But Shane Burgos, that is an animal. That is a really tough opponent for your first fight back. I do not like that fight. I think I like it. It'll be interesting, but I favor Burgos.
Me too. I think that's going to be a tough weight class for him. The PFL actually has a pretty stacked featherweight division. My favorite fighter right now, Brandon Loughnane, is in the PFL at featherweight. Chris Wade, Bubba Jenkins. There's just a lot of killers there. Shane Burgos might be his toughest fight, though.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's a hell of a fight on the first fight out.
Yeah.
Now, another news and note, which kind of connects to this fight night card this weekend. So we'll talk about this now. As far I want to close with the Bellator show this week because I thought Bellator just has the better card, so that just happens to be the way it is. This fight card is interesting in the sense it's not really stacked. What I talked to before, I wanted to go over the main event and the co-main event, and I think there's a couple fights you wanted to maybe highlight in the prelims. But before we get to that, interesting little tidbit this weekend. This is going to be at the Apex. They're not allowing any fans, which is whatever. That's, but they're also not allowing any MMA media. Now, when you told me this, my first thought was, okay, this is not a very big name card. And they probably just don't want to deal with a lot of negative press. So it's probably just easier to say, hey, stay home. And don't worry about it. We're giving you a night off. As Dana says, we give you a night off.
What he said, yeah.
But there's been some talk. Our friend sent us a little thing that Hawani had put up that basically was talking about that Mark Zuckerberg might be in the arena, and somehow this may contain the reason why there's no media there. I'm not really sure. This doesn't make sense to me.
Right. I mean, they had Donald Trump in the arena before, and fights still went on. You can't tell me that Mark Zuckerberg is more disruptive than Donald Trump. So I'm sure there's a little bit more to it. I wouldn't be surprised if Ariel is right. He is usually right about these things with his sources. So I assume Mark Zuckerberg has something to do with it. Whether I can't think of what it could be. I know he, had that video where he was training MMA and a bunch of fighters were saying, "Oh, you look so great," and all this. I'm glad he's a big fan or whatever, but I can't think of exactly what would warrant no fans and no media. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. Just means that there might be something a little extra special going on with this card. Dana could simply be just trying to drum up some more interest because the card is a bit weak. So doing something like this and not explaining it does drum up interest. I mean, we're talking about it. So
Mark,
I don't know, but I will be keeping my eye out for anything special on the card.
Now, before we get into the main event, co-main event, what are some fights you'd like to talk about here?
So, yeah, on the prelims, I'm actually more excited about a couple of these prelim fights than I am most of the main card. So, to keep an eye out for Jocko versus Brennan Allen. I don't know how Brennan Allen is on a prelim. He's super dangerous at middleweight. So, I'm looking for him to get a knockout finish for sure. Jessica Penne is fighting Tabitha Ricci. That's a great matchup. That also on the prelims. And then the main event on the prelims, two big boys, two big grapplers, Ilir Latifi and Alexei Olenek are going to be going at it. So I hope that we don't get one of these typical two grapplers engage in a terrible striking match. I hope we actually get to see them grapple because I think it will be incredibly interesting to see who comes out on top. I think I'd put my money on Olenek, even though he's 150,000 years old, but I bet he gets some sort of scarf choke on that thick-necked Latifi. So I'm excited for those fights.
Yeah, he's got some old man strength. Now, is there any other fights on this main card you want to talk about too?
Yeah, Sodiq Yusuff is fighting a newcomer, Don Shainis. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his last name, but so I'm a fan of Yusuff, but he has an exciting kickboxing style, but he hasn't showcased it lately. He has a lot of decisions. He's had to grind out some wins and stuff. And this newcomer, Don, he's won his last 5 fights, and the last 3 of them are by TKO. Plus, he fights out of Glory MMA with James Krause. So he, has potential to be one of the fights I'm going to keep an eye out for. So hopefully that could be a good striking matchup for Yusuff too. So maybe we get to see him go back to his kickboxing a little bit more.
We'll see. Co-main event. Go ahead.
Yeah, Randy Brown. Randy Brown's fighting Francisco Trinaldo, the old man. So I'm gonna say Randy should destroy Trinaldo in this fight.
Yeah.
So Randy's peaking. He's 32 years old, I think. He's peaking. Trinaldo is 44 years old, which is about 75 in fight years. But with that being said, Trinaldo keeps getting it done. He keeps getting wins, even though he is an old man in the sport. He's well-rounded. He's super tough. I've seen Randy Brown get rocked. I've seen him get tired. So I don't know how popular this opinion is, but I'm going to say Trinaldo upsets him in a decision.
All right. Backley here, Daniel Backley, Trinaldo will be high intensity round 1, then dip in cardio after that. So we'll see. I think I got to go with Randy Brown too. I just think because he's younger, I got a little more faith in him to be explosive. But Trinaldo's no easy out for sure. He's been around forever. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased too. I want Randy Brown to win this fight too.
I want him to win too.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be shocked either way. But I'll put some money on Brown. And I'd say round 2. I think he's going to get it done one way or the other. Maybe a TK. Yeah, I don't think he's submitting Trinaldo, but
that's a tough ask. Yeah.
And then this main event, what do you think?
Oh yeah, so I'm 100% going with Mackenzie Dern over Yan. She just beat Tecia Torres, which is a huge ask. Tecia Torres is a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yan got TKO'd by Carla before that, and then her wins before that were Claudia Gadelha, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and Angela Hill. None of which were or are currently in the best part of their career. They've looked a little bit weathered, or they're struggling. So
maybe Hill. I don't know. I mean, Hill. I don't know. I want to say
she's just up and down in general. I feel like Claudia was on her way out before retirement, and Karolina had lost 5 in a row before recently. So, her record is less impressive than it looks on paper to me. So, between that, Dern's striking specifically, her power has greatly improved. But I think if she can get this into the ground, she's going to win within a minute of getting it to the ground. So I think she gets her down in round 2 and gets some sort of submission.
I'm going to agree with that too. But there's when you look at Jan's record, losing her last fight, she lost a split decision to Rodriguez too recently. But it's just, I don't know. I look at it like 7 knockouts, 8 decisions for her 15 wins. I don't see any submission victories on there. And you're going up against a submission ace in Mackenzie Dern. And if you look at Dern's record here, it's pretty much like all her grappling. It's just, there's so many medals and stuff. It's just so legendary, her grappling record. And it's like, she's got 5 decisions and 7 submissions. Her 2 losses have been by decision, so she hasn't been caught or anything. So I just don't see Dern
eating shots too.
Right. I'm saying she hasn't been finished though. She hasn't been. So yeah. I just feel like Dern's going to tap this girl out at some point here. Let's see what old back we got to say. Yan showed impressive defense against Marina, but Dern's grappling is huge. Thank you. Yeah. So I think we're all in agreement here. It's just that Dern's grappling is just on another friggin' level, and I think we're all in agreement. She's going to tap her out. I'm going to agree with you, Chevy. I'm going to go round 2 on this one as well. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this Bellator card. October 1st, so Saturday, Bellator 286. I don't know. I love this card. Let's see. Let's get right to it here. We got Juan Archuleta opening up against Enrique Barzola. Mm-hmm. Enrique Barzola is 18-6-2, 5 KOs, 4 subs, 9 decisions. He's a former Latin American Ultimate Fighter winner on season 2. And then you got Juan Archuleta, who's 25-4, 11 KOs, 1 sub, 12 decision, and a former Bellator bantamweight champion. It's a great matchup to open up the show. 2 solid guys. I like Archuleta. I just like the experience, I think, here with those 25 fights and being a former champion. I'll say he gets it done by decision.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I think the experience, he's seen it all in there at this point. Barzola is talented, but I think there's levels, and I think Juan is just a bit above him. I think he actually gets a TKO in round 2.
Yeah. So there we go. Archuleta striking is distance, game is key. Let's see. Another good fun fight. We got Jeremy Kennedy here, who's 17-3-1, 6 KOs, 2 subs, 9 decisions against Aaron Pico. 10-3, 7 KOs, 2 subs, 1 decision. Pico, a guy who has tremendous wrestling credentials. boxing credentials. Like, he was really the prospect. He suffered a couple of losses early, but he's on a 6-fight win streak right now. And I think he's starting to really feel himself. I say Pico's going to get this done. I'm going to go round 1. I think he just finishes him. I think he's going to come out explosive, and I think he can do it.
Yeah, I'm going to say that Jeremy survives to round 2. I'm going to say it's a body shot KO.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get him to raise his guard up there and then land that big left hook to the body. And that's going to put Jeremy down.
And as Dan Backley pointed out in our comments, AJ McKee is making his debut at lightweight. That is the next fight here. He is taking on Spike Carlisle, a guy I just really like because he's always had fun fights. You saw him in the UFC for a little bit. He always brings it. He's 14-3. He's got 6 KOs, 7 subs, 1 decision. He's won 5 in a row, so good on him. He's a fun guy, and he's getting a great opportunity. That being said, he's fighting AJ McKee, 18-1, 6 KOs, 7 subs, 5 decisions, former Bellator featherweight champion, and he's coming off his first loss. And, he said not to make excuses, I believe, but he said that his weight was an issue, and he didn't even want to fight for the featherweight belt. So that's why I believe him, because a lot of times when you lose that title, you want to go back. He was more already interested in fighting at lightweight. I think it's going to be a big difference. I like AJ McKee in this fight. I think I'm going to go, since we like round 2 so much today, I'm going to go round 2. Sorry, Spike. And I'm going to say he gets him with a head kick and then maybe follows it up with some ground and pound and gets the TKO.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a huge fan of Spike Carlisle. This is literally the worst matchup for him, I feel like. AJ he's a monster, one of the world's best, for sure. And I agree with you. I think he's going to look even better at lightweight without diminishing himself. I think it's hard to decide. I think really he can get the fight done anywhere. Spike's tough, so I could see a decision as well. But I think because AJ's coming off that loss, he's going to be real hungry for a win. And I think he's going to probably get a KO. I'll say round 1 KO. Clips him early.
All right. And also, before I get to the next fight, too, Dan Backley, who's in our comments, by the way, I want to say runs Cage My IQ, great YouTube channel to check out. And also, Dan Backley, I did talk to him about this. I forgot to mention today. We're going to have him on the show pretty soon. So maybe sooner than later. We'll talk about that after. But appreciate all your input, Dan. So, and then the main event, frustrate this name here because it looks just like Adam Borucks. Borucks. Okay. But he's 18-1. He's 4 KOs, 6 subs, 7 decisions. Got 1 disqualification victory in there somewhere too. And he's taking on the Pitbull, Patricio Pitbull. Patricio's 33-5, 11 KOs, 12 subs, 10 decisions. He's a former lightweight champion and current featherweight champion. How do you see this one going?
Violently. I think, again, just like the Juan Archuleta fight, I think, Pitbull has so much experience in there. He's so dangerous everywhere, so much power. Adam's tough, but he's going to get rocked, I think. I don't think this fight's going to go 2 minutes. I think Patricio jumps on him early, knocks him down, finishes him, ground and pound. I'll say first 2 minutes.
There we go. All right. Yeah. You know what? I'll agree. So, is there anything else we want to talk about this week?
We didn't mention it, but the Gypsy King gave AJ an ultimatum and a time frame to sign the contract, and AJ responded with, "It's with the lawyers. I'm going to sign the contract." But it didn't get signed in the Gypsy King's, required time frame. So now he says he's on to other things. I'm not really sure if I believe him. I want to see the fight, so hopefully not. AJ's right when he's given these contracts to his lawyers because boxing's corrupt as shit. And you want to make sure you're going to get paid, even though the guy has, hundreds of millions of dollars. But
styles make fights.
Yeah.
And I think Joshua could be a fun fight with Fury. My money's always on Fury. I think he's just the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it could be a more competitive, despite the fact Joshua's had some troubles in recent outings. I think he'll be an interesting fight just because I think the way he game plans, and I think he's a good technical boxer as well. And I think that it'll be interesting. But at the end of the day, I always bet on Fury. But I hope they get it done.
Yeah, I hope they get it done too, and we get to see that fight by the end of the year.
All right. Well, we will be back here next week with something, and then the following 2 weeks we got.
Yeah, we got UFC Fight Night Grassos versus Arroyo, and then October 22nd, UFC 280 Oliveira versus Makhachev. Huge fight card. We're looking forward to that.
All right, awesome. Remember, check us out. Check out Dan Backley from Cage Time IQ, and check us out on Working Fans Podcast, the Combatcast. We'll be back with you next week, guys, and we'll see you at the fights. Thanks for tuning in as always.